With an election impending for police and crime commissioners, and having never had the opportunity to vote for the level of the annual police precept, I discovered from the Sussex Police and Crime Panel's website a meeting at which a new-to-me method of prolonging the Commissioner's political volte-face, which I had recorded in a previous video, was explained. This is that video.
And as I said before, and I say again, when I go out to the public all the time, as a Conservative, for me, raising taxes it shouldn't be done. We should be putting money back into people's pockets. They're hardworking. I was elected on a mandate to freeze the council tax last year, and I stand by that. And we've had 67% of respondents are in favour of an increase. And of that 67%, 90% agreed with the proposed increase of £4.95. For me, I'm here to represent the public, and the public is saying, yes, we're behind you on this one. Yes, we're happy to do this. That for me is the most important thing.
When I accessed the panel's website for information, I was surprised by the subtitle on the home page, as the main purpose of the panel is not to prop up the Commissioner, but what follows is more accurate. I will be dealing briefly with agenda items concerned with the first and third powers listed here, and in the middle am including all that survives of an agenda item about how the Commissioner had discovered what increase in tax for the police the people of Sussex wanted.
The Commissioner has put together a plan, so can we ask you to introduce this, please, Commissioner?
Thank you very much, Chair. Well, I was actually going to pass to my Chief Exec, Mark Streeter, to do this because obviously he's been very closely involved with all the different working groups with the Police and Crime Panel as well around this. So, Mark, are you?
Certainly, yeah. Thank you, Commissioner, Chair and members. Good morning to you all.
This agenda item is about the Commissioner's new edition of the Police and Crime Plan, which will replace the one I reviewed in a video. Streeter was selected as Chief Executive in the Commissioner's office using a job description drawn up by the Director of Human Resources in Sussex Police, with advice by the Commissioner, whose only previous commercial experience, as far as I know, was running dancing classes for the public. In the following clip, I say that Streeter is not a panel member, which would seem unthinkable had not an ex-Sussex police officer been chosen as an independent member and allowed to vote for the precept. But Bourne's statement about his important role in the arrangement of private meetings between employees in the Commissioner's office and members of the Police and Crime Panel, chosen by the toady in the High Chair, suggests that Streeter is doing much more for the panel than some of its formally appointed elected members. The next clip shows the jokey Bentley selecting his deputy, a lawyer, and others to work on the precept with the Commissioner's officers.
Are you happy to volunteer, Councillor Mitchell?
Unless someone wants to volunteer before me. But
OK, so it is myself, Councillor Mitchell, Councillor Lintle, and Mr Nightingale.
But the Commissioner's Chief Executive, who is not a panel member, but who, with 28 years as a Sussex police officer, must have had plenty of experience with organised dishonesty and law-breaking by the police, suggested that the title of the group should be changed to something less precise, avoiding the word precept, budget being preferable. Sussex Police and Crime Plans and maximum practicable precepts could be private stitch-ups. I do not think that such private meetings are compatible with the requirements of Schedule 6 of the Police Reform and Social Responsibility Act 2011. Membership and status. 4.6. A police and crime panel may not exercise any functions other than those conferred by this Act. Part 4. General Provisions. 22. A person may not be a co-opted member of the Police and Crime Panel for a police area if the person is any of the following. A member of the staff of the Police and Crime Commissioner for that police area. When the Commissioner was speaking about a later item on the agenda, the hardware crashed.
This coming financial year as well. Sussex Police has, even after receiving government financial...
Those who are watching the webcast, I hope that you are able to watch this meeting again. We did have some technical issues, but I hope we are now broadcasting and you're able to view the meeting. So I will ask Mervyn Dadd to resume his presentation.
Who is Mervyn Dadd? The name being new to me, I looked him up on the Commissioner's website. First, I found that he is one of 3 senior employees, Head of Public Engagement and Communications, and earns £82,641, term not specified. Then, unless there are 2 of him, I found that he is also Chief Communications and Insight Officer. What does an Insight Officer do? A dictionary definition says he or she has a clear, deep, and sometimes sudden understanding of a complicated problem or situation. A few days ago, I read what Dad's previous jobs had been, but today I could no longer find the list, so I cannot tell you the names of the 2 police forces for which he worked. This video would be much too long if I subjected what follows to critical analysis, so judge for yourself why the policeman is smiling.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to everybody who was watching for your patience there. What we had just been saying was that we had run 64 consultations with local parish and town councils across East and West Sussex. These were in lieu of what we might have done with local focus groups. We wanted to reach the greatest number of people, and I thought it might be worth just adding that the choice of these places that we went to, these are places we hadn't been to before. So we do have extensive outreach and conversations with towns and districts through the CSPs, but we really wanted to get a representative sample of urban, rural and coastal places. So hopefully that will explain why some towns weren't included. But anyway, we have some other things we can discuss about how far we've got the message out. So if we go to the next slide, please, Ian. What we were discussing when the link went down was what was being discussed in all of those consultations, and it was the things that people have been writing in about, the things that you will have seen in the newspapers, people concerned about roads policing, about rural crime, about 101, and the people that were attending from my office, listening to these concerns, were taking them back to district commanders and police leads, and the good news was that people were getting those issues sorted. A lot of it was miscommunication. A lot of it was just not knowing who was the right person to speak to, and I'm sure that the force in time with their new engagement strategy will really grip that. So just as a summary, in December, 21 out of 32 councils rated themselves at least fairly happy with levels of police engagement, and 11 out of 32 said they were very happy. This was slightly up on the spring consultation when 17 out of 32 said they were fairly happy and 10 said they were very happy. And as we were saying just now, the issue of PCSOs is at the core of some of this local policing, and also people getting regular updates about what's happening in their areas. I was going to go on to the other things that the PCC's office did during that year. We had some virtual roundtables and some public briefings. There were 2 rural crime roundtables with members of the NFU and the Country Landowners Association and others. We had a virtual public briefing on road safety, which was very well attended. And we had a virtual meeting in Crawley that was hosted by the local media station there, in which the public put questions to the PCC, senior police officer, local business representative, the local MP, and a member of the Crawley Interfaith Group, who was a previous member of our Elders Commission. The key point to make here is that through those 32 parish councils that we visited, we've reached out to 293,000 people who are registered to vote and a total of 350,000 residents. It would be ambitious to consult all 250 parishes and towns. I'm not going to say that it's impossible. It's certainly something that we'll have a look at. We can get to the next slide, please, Ian. So I know we've discussed this earlier. What I wanted to do from April last year, particularly because of COVID, was to give people an organic way of communicating with the office. And this is a live sentiment meter. So it's on the website now. This allows you to slide the lozenge left or right to say how you feel about safety in your area, and then to provide your postcode. And that feeds through into a map. So for maximum transparency, what we want to try to do is to give people a sense of how other people feel where they live. And if we go on to the next slide, please, Ian. So 4,179 people used that up until about 2 weeks ago, and I know people are still using it now. And as I think as one of the panel members said, it's not perfect, but it's a great start because it's a way of getting people to tell us how they feel now, and they can tell us how they feel next week as well. So all of the data that we collected up until I think the 18th of January is attached to the panel papers, and we'll make that available on our website. And the ambition around this is to make this a very rich, interactive map for people, so they can go on there and they can find crime figures for the area, they can find access to support for victims of crime, and they can find stories, and ultimately we want to upload blogs and videos from local people to tell us how they feel. We want this to be the front window for citizens talking to the PCC. So next one, please, Ian. So now we're getting up to December last year, by which time, of course, we knew what the government's outlined funding plan was. And within the announcement they made in December, it also included projected levels of funding if all PCCs applied a maximum permitted preset rise. But at the same time as this was happening, we were also preparing the PCC's new Police and Crime Plan and working with the panel working group. So through the surveys, we took the opportunity to ask the public to rate their policing priorities. So we gave them, I think I put 20 crime types on there. I think, in fact, in the finished product, it was 15. And we also asked them to rate their views on funding levels as well. And I know one of the things that has been at the core of panel members' questions is making sure it's demographically representative. So we know from previous surveys that we tend to get older people responding to some of our online surveys. So we designed the Policing Challenge game, and that was specifically created to appeal to a younger audience. So that had a series of issues that you can see on that slide there. As you hovered on it, it would explain what they were. And it allowed people to allocate tokens to illustrate what they thought they wanted to resource most. So if you go to the next one, please, Ian. The thing I'm really pleased about is the extent of the coverage, because in order to make sure that the maximum number of people had the chance to have their view, we used every single channel that we got available to us and our partners. We went through all 16 local newspapers. The Commissioner was on the television and the radio. We promoted it across Facebook and Instagram, and I'll be describing that in more detail in the next couple of slides. We cascaded it through community safety and victim support groups, through faith networks, and we also sent it to attendees of previous focus groups that included the Racial Harassment Forum in Brighton, disability groups, LGBT groups, and age groups as well. So these are people that we previously had on focus groups, and we sent it to them, to universities, to colleges. It was also promoted through the Association of Local Councils, Neighbourhood Watch, Crime Stoppers, and other partners. And of course by the Police Federation and Sussex Police. The figure speaks for itself. There were 49 mentions in a month, in 1 month, 49 mentions on TV and newspapers and we reached nearly 650,000 people, and the coverage of that was 97% positive. So next one, please, Ian. So this is just to give you an illustration of what happened when we targeted it to the under 55s. We reached nearly 13,000 people, and the age breakdown ranged from 18 to 54. And you can probably see on there was an interesting disproportionate response from males to females. So nearly twice as many men as women answered that survey. And we had a pretty good engagement. But if you go to the next slide, Ian, here you can see that we had maybe 16,000 people were reached, and the engagement was pretty good as well. But here you can see there was a fairly even gender split, particularly for people over the age of 65. You can get to the next one. This is really what this is all about, though. We asked the public to rate 15 different crime types, and the top 5 concerns that came back were serious violence and knife crime, rape and sexual assault, drug dealing in county lines, burglary and neighbourhood policing. And I think we will see that these results are very aligned with the areas for investment that the Chief Constable has outlined, and now the main priorities that the Commissioner has in her draft Police and Crime Plan. Next one, please. So we had 4,465 responses across both surveys. And what was very interesting to see was, although we used 2 different approaches to engaging the public, one which was more focused on crime concerns and the other on resources that could be deployed to them, both polls returned broadly similar levels of support for precept increases and also the priorities. And on to the last one. So overall, of the 4,465 responses, it breaks down to 50.8% of respondents supporting a £15 a year increase, 19.2% supporting £10, 25% say they don't support an increase, and 4.7% saying they would support some increase, and some specify what that was and some didn't. So overall, we have 70 to 74.7% of residents are in favour of an increase, and the confidence interval of 95% means there is a margin of error on these returns of 1.46%. So thank you all, and obviously, as the Commissioner has said, we welcome ideas and further collaboration on better and more extensive and future consultation and engagement.
Could easy access to a map of places in Sussex which have proved their suitability for criminal activity be popular with criminals?
I'm happy to propose that we support the £15 increase proposed by the Police and Crime Commissioner.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that?
Chair, it's Councillor Whippy. I'm happy to second.
Thank you.
Thank you, members. That is carried.
Thank you very much. Right. Staying with Mr. Edwards, we have the quarterly report of complaints on pages 161 and 162 of the agenda. Mr. Edwards, would you like to just take us through that report, please?
Yes, sir. Very, very briefly, Chairman. So 5 people contacted the panel, as is the our process. We record all complaints. We record all correspondence. And on this occasion, all 5 complaints, if you like, were not found to be within the panel's remit, and there you can see under paragraph 2.3 how those complaints were handled. If members have any questions, happy to take those, Chairman.
Thank you. Panel members, do you have any issues you wish to raise on that report? Okay, members, can I ask you to open your microphones? Can I ask if you are satisfied to note the report?
Noted.
Yes.
Note the report.
Noted.
Thank you very much.
The members of the panel didn't have a word to say about these complaints from members of the public. Why not? Did a selection procedure conducted by West Sussex County Council favour councillors belonging to safer Sussex partnerships, which are funded using taxpayers' money by the Commissioner. I'd never heard of these partnerships before I watched the panel's first meeting.
A lot of the areas where crime is lowest, it's because of the effectiveness of partnerships.
Wise words, and yes, Chief Exec's writing it down. Thank you.
The Chairman invited the Commissioner to outline her vision for her role.
The structure of the Police and Crime Plan, as you can see, there's 3 parts to it, all equally as important as each other. One being engagement, and that's with the community. Then the partnerships, very, very important. And I was particular in my election process to be a big supporter of community safety partnerships. And I've said and maintained all along that where they work extremely well. And I will be very keen to see those going forwards and to strengthen them. Those that aren't working so well, obviously I see my role as helping to really strengthen those where they are. But I've already set up meetings with the chief executive officers of both the county councils and the unitary, and I'm in the process. And the leaders, of course. And I'm in the process of setting up meetings with all the council leaders from the districts and boroughs. As well as meeting with the representatives from SALC, the Sussex Area of Local Councils. And as I said, I'm very, very keen to come and meet your community safety partnerships. So if you haven't already, let me know the dates of when they meet, please do, and I'll make sure that they're fitted into my diary. And the final part is obviously the police side of police and crime, and setting the vision, making sure that the police deliver on the priorities that we set out for them.
The senior advisor had ruled that so-called complaints were not found to be within the panel's remits. Had these members of the public been warned about the conditions that governed complaints from them? I looked in vain for these remits on the websites of the panel and of West Sussex County Council, and so quote again from my own records. After my complaints about the Commissioner and the panel were dismissed in an email from the West Sussex Censor.
Okay, well we now, unfortunately, as with the public questions earlier, unfortunately we haven't received any written questions, so we must again look for your ideas as to how we can encourage those questions to come forward.
Not allowing the county council to run the panel would help. When I complained to the council that when the Commissioner had appeared to be lying, members of the panel were too diffident or too ignorant to raise objections, and that the panel's website included nothing about complaints about the panel and the council officers who manage it, I was told by the senior advisor, "The issues you raise seem to be a matter of interpretation. The statutory complaints process is not really set up to handle such issues. There is currently no mechanism for submitting complaints about the Police and Crime Panel itself. On the West Sussex County Council's website is an off-putting page about these annual questions. A Democratic Services officer could decide that a question saying someone appears to be lying is defamatory, and that adverse criticism could annoy a panel member. Any member of the public might think that police answering the telephone is an operational matter, or worry whether their own grievance is a common problem." Thinking I might have speculated too soon on a possible reason for the panel's lack of interest in complaints from the public, I checked on the current number of these very, very important safety partnerships, which are supposedly as important as council officials, other council committees, and the public, and the police side of police and crime. This councillor's web page had a hyperlink not linked to a computer file listing his interests,
but arithmetic suggests that he is not a very, very important safety promoter. The links of the other panellists worked. There now seem to be fewer of these safety partnership members on the panel than when Bourne started supervising and improving them. There are now only 2 safety partnerships and 2 safer partnerships. Schofield, unelected, is a magistrate. Sussex Police Authority had 3 magistrates and 1 former magistrate. And I also found out that we have a replacement for a so-called independent member of the panel who had been a Sussex police officer for many years, which did not stop him voting repeatedly for maximum allowable precepts for Sussex Police. Napthine is also a so-called independent member of the panel. What do his interests include? He's a member of NAPO, National Association of Retired Police Officers member. Another possible reason for councillors towing the bureaucratic lines is the hope for being honoured for services to bureaucracy. When I followed the work of Sussex Police Authority, at least 3 of the members were not ashamed to be tagged with a British Empire label. The distribution of such honours could be promoted by local councils as part of the way in which they control what those who are supposed to represent the public are allowed to say and do, like answer emails addressed to them, instead of council officers answering members of the public. I think that the councils of East and West Sussex have had a seriously deleterious effect on Sussex policing in this century. One of the 3 honoured persons on Sussex Police Authority became the protagonist in a video called Sussex Police Unrehearsed. Mrs. Carol Shaves was a member of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, a magistrate, and in Sussex Police Authority had lead member responsibility for serious and organised crime and children and young people. Mrs. Shaves prolonged a meeting of Sussex Police Authority to aver that the police authority members were ambassadors for the force, who should try to shield the police from any blame for the death of 5 Sussex residents less than 2 minutes after unauthorised police action. Here's a few frames from the video.
Most members will know that we're coming up to the anniversary of the car crash that happened in Hastings. That's all right for everybody to
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go
on. And I understand, obviously, that the IPCC were involved. They have come back with a report on from the IPCC, which has been given to the families, but which we, as an authority, have not been allowed to see. And I think that is an absolutely disgraceful situation. How can we possibly be ambassadors for the force if we have absolutely no idea what is in this report? And we have no idea when we're going to get it. The IPCC have not agreed that we should have a copy of this. So perhaps I can pass it over to Joe.
Yep, and I think John would like to comment. Yeah.
It is a matter of great concern, and it's something Joe and I have talked about. I've written on your behalf to the IPCC. Joe will report on his take on it as well. A next move could be for you, Chairman, to write to the Chairman of the IPCC about it, but clearly the present situation is most unsatisfactory. But I think Joe would like to amplify.
To make an observation, then an update. The observation is that I can personally see no reason why the authority should not receive that report, and I'm not sure we'll need to explore whether the IPCC, providing the report to the force, can bind the statutory oversight role of the authority through its oversight of the complaints committee. I'd be surprised if they can in that way. However, by way of update, I spoke with Nick Hardwick this morning. I haven't resolved the issue because it is wrapped up in the resolution of both the IPCC inquiry and I think allied to that the inquest into the deaths of the young people. So I would ask members to be patient for a little bit longer and we'll see if we can get resolution. But my position in terms of the authorities' access to a report on a complaint matter in Sussex Police is, I can't see on what grounds that couldn't happen, unless the issue was an issue that separated the authority and the force, and they're very rare, and this isn't one of them.